Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Paddocks. On this episode, we're going to be covering the Imola Grand Prix weekend and all the updates you may have missed. On the episode, we have Amy, Ito, and myself, Chelsea, with LeAnne behind the scenes. To start us off, we have Amy with some updates on the track.
Now, we have an absolute laundry list of changes to the circuit for this year. So, bear with me while I go through this bulleted list. We have new double curbs on turn 2 on the left-hand side. We also have new double curbs installed on turn 3 on the right-hand side. New double curbs for turn 4 on the left-hand side. New double curbs for turn 5 on the left-hand side. New double curbs for turn 6 on the right-hand side. And then at the beginning of the curb in turn 6 on the right-hand side, there is a new asphalt patch that's actually been removed between the step between the curb and the verge. Does that mean anything to me necessarily? No, but this is part of the laundry list of changes. Between turns 7 and 8 on the right-hand side, 2 drain covers have been replaced with a French drain, which is really just a trench, if I'm being honest. I did go to Google to confirm what a French drain is considered, and it is a trench. There is a new double curb that was installed on turn 9 on the left-hand side. There was a reduction of asphalt runoff on the exit of turn 9 on the right-hand side. Again, new double curbs on the right-hand side of turn 11 and the right-hand side of turn 12. A reduction of the asphalt runoff between turns 12 and 13 on the left-hand side. New double curb at the exit of turn 15 on the right-hand side, as well as reduced asphalt in the runoff area. And to round it out, yet again, new double curb on the left-hand side of turn 19. Now, that's a lot of upgrades to the track, if I'm being honest. I feel like it's been a while since we've seen a track do that much updating, but it's also been 2 years since we've been at this track, and with everything that happened the last time we tried to be there, I'm not super surprised. I'm wondering if some of those changes also had to do with repairs for any damage that may have happened to the circuit. I don't think there was any announcements of damage to the circuit after all of the flooding that happened previously, but those are all of our track updates. Now, for more, pre-race fun and updates that happen before the start of the weekend, for anybody who generally watches Sky Sports for their F1 coverage, sorry, y'all, but we had no David Croft this weekend. And not having Crofty kind of sucks, but he was very open about it before the start of the season that he was going to be taking time to be with his family. So this was a race that he was not in town for, sadly.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, as a Sky F1 girly, via F1 TV, missing his voice was weird. But then again, as Amy said, it was announced at the beginning of the season that he was gonna miss 3 races. This one, and Austria and Baku still to come. And he said it was mainly due to the long and grueling schedule and him getting older as a human being, which is totally fair. I mean, 24 races is a lot. But he hasn't missed a race commentary, I think, since the early 2000s, if not the late 90s. So that says something.
Crofty is definitely a staple, an icon, whatever you want to call him. The man, the myth, the legend, take your pick. He was not around. But if you are somebody like me who is a F1 TV fan, if you do not watch their weekend warm-ups, I highly recommend them. We actually had a new member. It gave you a little intro into him for this weekend, and that was Davide Valsecchi, who is a 2012 GP2 champion, who also, for a fun fact, was a test and reserve driver for Lotus F1 in 2013. It was a nice little way to get a recap on what happened in Miami, get to know a new pundit who was going to be around for the weekend. It's about a 30-minute episode. I like to just like kind of pop it on while I was doing stuff around the house. I recommend you check it out. In terms of other upgrades that we saw, Ferrari brought a major rework to the SF24 with the trade-off between cooling and aerodynamics reoptimized around a new side pod floor combo. We knew they were bringing upgrades, but it was kind of almost a little Red Bull-esque in terms of aesthetic. But that was the only team, to my knowledge, that brought any upgrades for their cars, specifically for Imola.
So I will say, I saw some people online saying that the side pod reminded them a little bit of Red Bulls. But besides that, I was so excited to see the upgrades come in, since they did hold out because of the sprint races recently. So the good thing is we're only like, I think 6 races in right now, with like this past weekend counting. So there's plenty of time for these changes on the grid to like take place as we see the updates kind of come into play. Because I do think this race weekend wasn't enough.
We also got a little bit of a silly season update, or at least I got it from watching Weekend Roundup, or Weekend Warm Up. I do apologize. Weekend Warm Up. Lawrence Barretto was talking about an interview that happened with Adrian Newey, and I'm going to kind of summarize what he had pointed out, but I think he picked up on a really interesting distinction, and that is the fact that in the recent interview that Newey gave, he said he was still considering options, but he needs time, which the way Lawrence was kind of analyzing it was basically saying that it kind of meant that Newey doesn't really know 100% what his next decision is, which I think is really interesting, because the rumor mill has been going absolutely bonkers on where this man is going to land. I know we've all speculated it ourselves, but it just kind of seems like he's still figuring out his options, which I don't blame him for, but it's just surprising.
So apparently, from the last race, Miami, and I guess just moving forward, he's also no longer part of any of the engineering decisions going into the weekend, and he's not a part of the engineering meetings. He's mainly there for strategy function, so you're just really going to see him on the pit walls moving forward, and that's from an interview he did with Formula One this weekend.
In terms of contract updates, we got the news that Alex Albon and Williams have extended Alex's contract. He's just been so reliable for them, so I don't think it really surprised anybody with that move. But in typical Alex Albon fashion, he was in like a very weird situation when his contract came through. And that was the fact that he was literally kissing stingrays in the Cayman Islands with his girlfriend. And I just feel like that is so on brand for Alex to get the notification about a contract extension. It's typical Alex.
Yes, definitely. I mean, could you imagine anything more wholesome? But on the note of Williams drivers, this weekend, James Vowles for the first time admitted very openly that Logan C is at risk. Could we see someone else moving in? I would say yes, especially with the whole special dispensation. A team, we don't 100% know which team made to the FIA for Kimi Antonelli, who's only turning 18 in August.
So that special dispensation is for him to do an FP1. It is not for him to be considered for a regular season seat. It is strictly for an FP1. So I know, at least for me, as somebody who is a big Logan girl, I kind of freaked out when the news hit, but the fact that it is just for a free practice makes me a little less anxious per se. I think I'm more anxious about the fact that Valtteri Bottas was seen leaving the Williams hospitality than I am about the concept of Kimi Antonelli doing a free practice. Like, I think everybody has kind of started to realize that taking him straight from skipping F3 into F2 and putting Kimi in F1 after a single season of F2 is just a horrible idea. But again, if you don't watch Weekend Warm Up, check it out, because that was how I found out that special dispensation was strictly for an FP and not like an actual legit super license.
That makes sense. Also, as much as I love Logan, I can understand why Williams may be a little unsure about him for next season. But again, we're very early on in the year. Maybe Williams and Logan makes a turnaround. Someone else that hopefully makes a little turnaround is Kevin. Kevin, man, you are definitely out here wilding these past few races. Right now, Kevin went into the weekend with like 10 points on his license. So there's that. We should also acknowledge he came into the season with no points. So that is all in just the past 6 races. And I think it's crazy, obviously. But basically, right now, he has to choose to either keep driving aggressively, which has helped the team a lot this season, or pull back, the smart choice. But to be honest, like, what's one race? Come back with a clean slate and do it again. You know, Beerman can drive for that race that he has to miss out. Beerman? Anyways, he can take the drive. Good plan, right?
I mean, it would be funny because race bans have not happened in a hot second. I think it was Grosjean in the early 2000s that had the last one, and before that, it was someone, I think Schumacher, but I'm not 100% sure, in the 90s. So, but hey, K-Mag, take one for the team, I guess.
I really just want Kevin to do it for the plot at this point. Like, what is a singular race ban? It's not like Haas is fighting that hard for points that Kevin's not the one fighting for points for them right now. Is it really going to impact the team that much to have him just collect a race ban? But I did see something that the FIA is looking to ban, quote, Magnussen-style driving, whatever that means. But I love that was how they described the driving style. It was it's just you're doing a Magnussen. It's the same way that people like to use Latifi as a verb. And I love it. But I'm really interested to see if they actually ban the style of driving and how they write the ban to, like, I'm just so interested. I feel like you haven't seen that happen. At least I haven't seen that happen in F1 since I got into the sport. And I just think that's absolutely bonkers.
I mean, honestly, I feel like, yes, K-Mag is usually not the Haas fighting for points, but he is covering Hulk so he can get the points. So they kind of need each other. Like, if you were to put, say, Behrman into that seat, I don't think it would work as well. But enough speculation about K-Mag and a potential race ban. Let's move into free practice. Because Ollie Behrman actually made an appearance. He was actually in place of Kevin Magnussen for Haas's first rookie FP1 session.
I love when we get rookies in the car. It's one of my favorite times, but Ollie for me is someone that I always root for, so I loved getting to see him get more chances to be in an F1 car and get more experience. I actually don't even normally watch free practice. Sorry, I'm a highlights girl. I just don't have the time sometimes. But I actually made sure that I did not miss FP1 specifically because of Ollie. But I will say I do love that in FP1 we had quite a few people go a little bit wide into the gravel. Like I'm looking at Yuki and Lewis mainly. But it wasn't as, I guess, boring as free practice can tend to be in some ways. I feel like we had a little bit more intrigue and drama.
Plus, we had that red flag due to Alex having technical issues in that Williams.
But we also had Joe, Pierre, and I think even Esteban who were having issues with bouncing, porpoising, whatever you want to call it. My favorite reference now is from Joe, and that's the fact that he said he felt like a kangaroo, which just had me literally on the floor giggling because it's accurate. They're bouncing up and down so much, it looks like a kangaroo's hopping. I mean, it wasn't the description I was expecting, but it works.
He knows what he means. He's right. But we actually, okay, so I think you said you weren't sure which cars came with upgrades this race weekend. It was actually every car this weekend that came with upgrades except Red Bull. They were the only cars that came in without upgrades. So I mostly was excited to see who got maybe 1/10 faster. Obviously, McLaren is doing very well and Ferrari is also doing very well. But I think it was Oscar who was a little worried about the upgrades, or he wasn't sure if they were really gonna do what they wanted it to do. But I can see them doing very well this season, so I think they're perfectly fine.
I mean, they just came off a race win, so they're definitely doing more than fine. But let's move on to FP2, because at the beginning of FP2, they were still working on Alex Albon's car that brought out the red flag in FP1 because he hit a curb, which caused the technical issue. Thankfully, they got it going, though.
I mean, look, if you think about it, it only took them 20 minutes for both cars to get out there. So they got out there. They were able to put in times. So not great for the boys, but I still think it was a pretty interesting practice to watch because we saw Charles go back to back, I think, if I'm not wrong, with P1. So that's beautiful. That's exactly what we want to see at a home race, right? Technically a home race. And Oscar and Yuki rounded up the top 3 for FP2. And, sometimes it's just nice pretending that Yuki was on the podium. Okay? That's how it feels in my heart. So I really like it. And Max was struggling all of Friday. So not beautiful to watch, but also, you know.
I mean, honestly, when I see Max struggle, it just reminds me that he's human too. And that's kind of nice to see. But other people that were human in FP3 were Alonso that hit the barrier halfway through practice, bringing out a red flag. And then 5 minutes before the end, it was Checo that hit the barrier and the session was red flagged, calling for an early end. What is it with the barriers and these guys? Really?
Sometimes I wonder if there's magnets in the barriers and some of these drivers' cars that just magically pull them in. It feels like they just kind of go into them out of nowhere, and I'm just how, why, what just happened? But I do have to say, we need to give major kudos to Fernando Alonso's side of the Aston Martin garage for getting that car ready and on track for quali, because 10 out of 10, guys. I'm going to give y'all a golf clap because that was fantastic. I feel like it's been a bit since we've seen mechanics have to scramble to get a car ready for quali. And as much as I'm sure the garage hates having to scramble, it is so nice to kind of watch it happen as a fan because it's just so impressive. But I don't know what was happening this weekend, but I swear to God, everybody was just going over or off the track a little bit this weekend. And maybe it's just because it's been a while since we've been at Imola, or there's something in the water that everyone just was having issues with how their car was handling. But it was just a little weird, the start of quali. I don't know exactly what was happening with everybody.
Those new curbs will get you, I'm afraid. So I would probably account it to that.
Also, Alonso's mechanics must have hated him because he almost put it into a barrier again during Q1. Like, their speed job was almost for nothing.
I bet you every single one of those mechanics was cursing under their breaths. Without a doubt. If that was me, I would have. But I have to say there's no way I am the only person who was on the literal floor when Nico Hülkenberg topped the timing charts. Even if it was only for a little bit, I just didn't have it on my bingo card, like, period, especially not Imola. I don't know why, but I just really didn't see it coming.
Oh, I definitely didn't see it coming either, but also Danny's last lap and Yuki, P3, the RBs were on fire during Q1 and in a good way. But of course, that also meant we lost some people, and those people were Alonso, Magnussen, Zhou, Sargent, and Bottas. And we also got the news of a potential penalty for Piastri due to potentially impeding Kevin, which could lead to a 3-place grid drop. Now, as for Q1, the RBs were still on fire. Like, literally, Yuki, what is that kid doing in that RB at their home race? Can someone explain?
I'm pretty sure the only correct answer is pixie dust. Like, I swear the only correct answer as to why that car is performing the way it is right now is pixie dust. I'm sorry, but it really is.
Or maybe David Coulthard was onto something when he said pasta makes you go faster after Yuki got P2 because, that guy loves food.
At this point, I expect nothing less from David Coulthard for him to make fun of people. But if he's going to, it's generally always somebody within the Red Bull family somehow. So, of course, Yuki is the easy target, I guess.
But Yuki wasn't the only RB going super fast because Danny ended up kicking Checo out of Q3.
Yeah, this weekend was definitely not Checo's time to shine. But in his defense, he did go out on used tires from Q1, so he was not really starting on the strong foot anyways, sadly.
I'm pretty sure all of PGP may have heard me scream seeing Checo get bumped out by Danny. Sorry, guys. I just really didn't have it, like, on a manifestation. Nothing. Like, I genuinely didn't see it coming. But goddamn, did I love that. Because maybe I'm a little petty. I'm sorry. I just can't help it. I kind of love watching Checo have a little bit of a struggle because sometimes I feel like he just needs to be taken down a peg or two. Oops. I just can't help it. Sorry. I don't know why Red Bull decided to send him out on used tires. Felt like a very weird strategy choice, but we're not in the strategy rooms. Maybe it was intentional, but I really just don't see how it could have been intentional. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in their debrief after qualifying because I wouldn't be surprised if he may have been a little perturbed.
Oh, he probably was. And honestly, I would be too. But it is what it is. And therefore, in Q2, we lost Checo, Esteban, Lance, Alex, and Pierre.
And then we moved into Q3. And Q3 really had me wanting to know which Nico Hülkenberg paid to give him all of these Q3 appearances because I have seriously lost track of how often he has made it to Q3. And I'm a little impressed. I can't even lie. And I'm not a big Hülkenberg fan. But the only way I can explain how he's had such good luck, I guess, outside of the fact that he's definitely got a teammate who is willing to be an absolute menace to society to get him into where he needs to be for qualifying, is witchcraft. Like, I swear to God, guys.
I mean, I do have my theories who was the witch he paid off, but I'm not going to name names. But we ended up with Max on pole, as usual. P2, we had Oscar, but because of the confirmed 3-place grid penalty, he ended up P5. Then we had Lando, P3, Charles, P4, Carlos, P5, Russell, P6, P7, Yuki, P8, Hamilton, P9, Ricardo, and rounding out the top 10, we had Nico.
But, like, hearing Max so excited about that pole position just, like, made my entire Saturday. That was just the sweetest thing. I pretty sure I quite literally looked at my TV and went, "Oh, Maxie," because it just warmed my heart. I feel like we don't see him get this excited about too many pole positions, but to see him and hear him be so excited was just so nice.
Let's also recognize that he equaled Senna's record for placing pole position, so it's now been 8 race weekends in a row. And that is honestly pretty damn amazing. So,
Agreed. And doing it at Imola, that is so closely tied to Senna and to tragedy that was his life. Damn. But let's talk about race day, because it was a somewhat spicy one. So we had Fernando starting from the pits after taking new parts during Parc Ferme. Not that he lost too many spots after qualifying 19th, with just Logan behind him, who didn't manage to actually set a lap time during qualifying and had to ask special permission to start the race. But we started off with a first corner that everyone thought it was going to be spicy, but honestly, it wasn't that spicy. But at least Lewis made up a spot into P7. Sadly, though, the RBs lost a bit of form during that start.
During the race, we also had issues for, I think, everyone's kind of like secret favorite. I don't care who you root for. I feel like everybody is an Alex Albon fan. And that was his tire issues that happened so early on. I was shouting at my TV for Williams to just like get it together, because he really just, I don't know what happened, but it was just not something that really should have been happening so early on in a race. He came out of a pit, tire wasn't on correctly, just an absolute kind of like rookie mistake in a way is what it felt like. What was that, Williams, please?
I mean, literally, the mechanics didn't place his wheels on properly. Thankfully, though, he realized early and was able to somewhat limp back to the pits to get that fixed. But sadly, that still meant that Williams got a fine for an unsafe release, and Alex himself got a 10-second penalty. Ouch.
I hated that Alex had to get a time penalty because it wasn't his fault. I feel like the team should have gotten the fine because it was team employees' issues, not driver issue, but it is what it is. We also had issues for Fernando Alonso where his front brakes were on fire. What the heck? I feel like it's been a bit since we've seen someone's front brakes just randomly catch on fire. It did go out on its own, but scary nonetheless. We also had Checo going off on lap 18, which was so not on my bingo card. I just feel like something is off with him. He has not been performing like he normally does. I don't know what's going on. Maybe he's a little distracted. He just hasn't been typical Checo. We also had, and I quote, absolutely loads of curb from Max Verstappen, and Max also getting a black and white flag, which was due to too many track limit issues, which is never good. I feel like he hasn't had that in a little bit, which is just a little odd as to why he was going off so much. I know Twitter was definitely going up on maybe Max was a little tired from his sim racing competitions that he was also doing this weekend, like a crazy person. Then he had that little bit of a pit lane entry issue, which just I feels like always keeps things a little interesting. He had an issue slowing down that speed, which does make sense with Imola being kind of a more high speed track. I just don't know what was going on with Max the beginning part of this race. He just didn't seem as sharp, I guess, as normal, but it made it for a very interesting beginning portion of the race, at least for me.
It definitely was interesting, and he definitely wasn't the only one going off, because Lewis went off too, and honestly, I just screamed, oh god, no.
I feel like the person who impressed me the most this weekend was Oscar Piastri. He just was looking so good this weekend, but I don't know why. I don't particularly have any strong correlation of like Oscar doing well in Imola and any other type of racing, but I just feel like he was crushing it this weekend, and then his lovely teammate Lando Norris was being a completely sassy Scorpio on the radio with the I have no pace, and just the little bit of sass that he constantly had this weekend. I know he was pushing really hard and really trying to close the gap to Max, but the sass was just so strong for him this weekend. This is something that I did not realize until about midway through the race when they finally mentioned it on F1 TV, and that was the fact that this was Lance Stroll's 150th race start in Formula One. I think they dropped that little tidbit of knowledge on like lap 30 or something like that. It was just a random little tidbit they decided to sprinkle in, and I kind of wish that I had known this going into this race weekend, because I just feel like we didn't know until after the race had finished.
Yeah, we definitely didn't know. But on that note, there was also some gold Lance commentary when he got a blue flag, and they, dare I say, chuckled about him auditioning going to Mercedes. As if that boy would ever.
He would never. That would be hilarious to watch, though. But I can't be the only person who noticed that Max and GP sound like an old married couple on the radio, because those two bicker. It's just so funny to get sometimes.
Honestly, I love them as a duo. But at the same time, after witnessing the last 10 laps of this race, I get Max's frustration. I would be frustrated too. And honestly, I think it's just because he's not used to such close racing anymore.
I feel like he has to like the challenge a little bit of it not being quite such an easy win for him now. At least it's nice to watch as a fan. That hurt my heart the most this whole race was seeing Alex have to retire the car kind of so late in the race. I just don't understand what is happening with Williams sometimes, and it hurts because I want to see them do well.
Lap 55 definitely hurt as a Williams fan. But did anyone catch why they retired him? It felt like it came out of nowhere, honestly.
So I'm not sure why they decided to retire him. If I'm not wrong, I think it still had something to do with like the technical things on the car. But I really feel for the team this season. Obviously, it's still very early on. I get it. But we all know that Williams wanted a stronger start from last year. And, I mean, maybe they'll be like McLaren, you know? Maybe they'll, like, start off a little crappy and then be super good after, like, spring break or something. But, I mean, summer break? Sorry. But, I don't know. I have hopes. I always have hopes for Williams.
We are always manifesting Williams F1 team's success over here. I swear. You just want to see them do well. It's really hard not to want to see them do well. I feel like we never got any really epic overtakes this race, at least not that stick out in my brain outside of Esteban Ocon's overtake on Valtteri Bottas. It was really kind of cool to watch because at least the F1 TV commentary didn't even seem to think that he was going to make the overtake, and then he just kind of sent it. It wasn't for points or anything, but it was still really kind of cool to watch.
It definitely was something. And did anyone then very shortly after notice that Esteban and Joe got noted for an incident? But F1 TV, at least the coverage I watched, didn't show it because they were so focused on Lando and Max out front. So I have no idea what happened. But of course, that just led to confusion.
I also saw that notification and did not see any clip of what happened. I'm hoping that it will wind up on YouTube or something somehow because I feel like we need answers. So F1 TV, please give us the answers. Thank you very much. I know I am not alone in the fact that I love a race to the flag. And good God, did Lando and Max give it to us. The McLaren upgrades just really seem to be bringing it, and I love it. Like, how close was that margin? It was just, I am a Red Bull girl to my core. Everybody who listens to this podcast is very aware of the fact that I am a Red Bull girl. But I love seeing some close racing and seeing Red Bull have to work for that win. I think it's just so much more fun for fans to watch, and I think it's probably more fun for the drivers. You cannot convince me that Max does not like having a little bit of a fight.
Oh, he definitely likes it. And honestly, the McLarens lately, damn. And it feels like Oscar is just waiting in the wings for his first full-length Grand Prix win because he has a sprint win already. So why not a Grand Prix win now? Lando has his. But also, on that note, Lando's message about not winning hurting more after winning had me in stitches. It was just typical Lando, but also so understandable.
I honestly love seeing the progress in other teams as they just inch a little forward, a little more towards Red Bull, specifically McLaren. But we know they're on top. We get it. But I think the tides are changing. I think they can change, especially with Nui leaving and not being in those little meetings anymore. So maybe sooner than we think. Shout out to Ferrari and McLaren and anyone else that wants to try.
I have to agree with you though, Chelsea. I really think that there is a shift coming. I am going to hate it as a Red Bull fan because I'm really like seeing my team do well, but like I can just feel it. It's getting tighter and I love it. I think it's what every F1 fan really wants. I mean, who doesn't want to see some freaking variety in your podiums? I know we all do. But we had 2 wins in one day for Max Verstappen because he also won the 24-hour Nürburgring that was with his sim racing team Redline, and then he won the Imola GP. I can't. That man is iconic sometimes. He's the only person on the grid who has the guts to do a sim race and an actual race on the same damn day. I really don't know anybody else who would even bother to attempt it but Max. And it took me a second at the podium to notice that the Tifosi were singing for Charles. I had to turn the volume up on my TV because I thought I was hearing things. And it just warmed my heart to hear it. They're so sweet. And it's so nice to see how much they truly love Charles and how supportive they are. It was such a serotonin boost, y'all.
I mean, it was the first time since Michael Schumacher in 2006 that a Ferrari driver made it onto the podium at Imola. So they better sing their heart out.
Oh, they definitely did. That was sung with massive gusto. But I cannot be the only person who noticed that on that podium, that Lando Norris went straight for Max with that champagne. It felt like a little bit of payback for Max getting Lando straight in the face with Lando's win in Miami. I mean, payback, I guess. I just thought it was hilarious to see.
You definitely weren't the only one. But did you notice that in Parc Ferme, Max went over to Adam Norris, Lando's dad, and gave him like a bro hug? That was so cute as well. Also, fun fact, if Lando would have won, he would have been the first-time race winner since 2007 that got back-to-back wins when Lewis Hamilton got that distinction. Granted, Lewis did it in his rookie season, but we're going to ignore that.
Now to move into probably, I think, every PGP girl's kind of favorite part of an episode, and that is predictions. And I cannot tell y'all how excited I was to pull out my pendulum to predict Monaco 2024, because it's Monaco, baby. I mean, what's not to love? Now, P1 is so interesting, and I am not about to complain one bit. And that is none other than Oscar Piastri in P1. I would be on the floor. Like, absolutely a hot mess. P2, Lando Norris. Again, no complaints here. I will take a McLaren 1-2, and I am the Red Bull girl. P3, of course, you kind of can't keep him too far from the podium, and that is Max Verstappen. I would love to see this podium happen. Will it? No, but I'm going to be delusional and manifest the hell out of this.
Oh, Monaco, my fave. I know it's cliche for me to say it's my fave, because I feel like it's everyone's favorite, but let this southern French girlie live. So, Dice, you better not let me down this go-around. But knowing the Dice, it probably will. Anyway, P1, we have Carlos Sainz. Not the Ferrari I was truly hoping for, but it's a Ferrari, so I'll take it. P2, Lando. Back-to-back P2s and a Carlando podium? Okay. P3, the tiniest one on the grid, Yuki. After his performance in Imola, it would be well-deserved, even if it isn't truly realistic, as the two tracks are so very different. Lastly, as my dice didn't predict Charles on the podium, I just hope he finishes the race. I acknowledge, though, by me saying this, I might have just jinxed it. Sorry, Charles. Hope I didn't, or my grandma's gonna yell at me.
I do love doing these. Okay, so next race, we have another home kind of moment, right, for the Ferrari team. So I'm going to start with that. Charles in P1 could be fun, could be possible. P2, I'm going with Verstappen. He's always going to be on the podium, so it's just, I want to see something different for Monaco on who's first on podium. But anyways, P3, I'm going to give to Lewis. He's like won this race a few times, not like a lot, but a few, and I think we can like work with that and get a podium. The last one was like 2018-19, so not too far off. And just for funsies, so that we can bring it on in for Ferrari, I think Sainz will get fastest lap, just for fun.
And now, to close out our episode, we wanted to highlight a driver of the week, and that is Max, because he won 2 races this weekend. And that's just impressive. He's a machine, that guy.
Thank God we're back in Imola this year. I mean, honestly, just glad they didn't get flooded out again, because last year was definitely scary. Let us know your favorite part of the race weekend. You can reach out to us on our socials. Everywhere we are at Paddock Girls Podcast, except Twitter or X. There we are at Paddock Girls Pod. Thanks for joining us in the paddock. See you after Monaco, and I'll see you in 2 months. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. See you after Monaco.
See ya.